Somewhere in Los Angeles right now, a phone is sitting on a table, and Jensen Ackles is staring at it. Not because he's waiting on a text from a friend. Not because he's checking his fantasy football league. He's waiting on a call from CBS. A call that decides whether Russell Shaw walks back in a Tracker Season 4, or whether one of the most beloved side characters on broadcast television quietly disappears. This is the kind of storyline that sounds small on paper. One actor, one character, one quote from a fan convention. But once you follow the thread, it connects to a full-blown ratings war, a betrayal that's still unresolved, and a production move that could change the entire show. So let's pull on that thread. My name's your host, and this is everything we actually know about Russell Shaw's future on Tracker, plus a few things the headlines are glossing over. Let's start with what actually happened, because the headlines are doing a lot of heavy lifting here. At Creation Toronto 2026, a fan convention built for exactly this kind of moment, Jensen Ackles got asked the question everybody's been sitting on since the Tracker Season 3 finale. Is Russell coming back? His answer wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no either. He basically said he moves in and out of the show depending on the story, that Season 4 has already started filming, and that he's still waiting for the phone call. Now, on its own, that's not a headline. Actors say vague things about future projects all the time, usually because contracts and scheduling are genuinely still being worked out behind the scenes. But context is everything here, and the context is what makes this actually worth talking about. Ackles isn't a series regular on Tracker. He's never been credited as one. He shows up as a guest star, which in television terms means his episode count is negotiated season by season, sometimes literally scene by scene. And yet, despite that guest status, he has appeared in every single season of the show since it premiered. Not because the contract requires it, because the show clearly wants him there, and apparently, so does he. So when he says he's waiting for a call, what he's really telling us is, the door isn't closed. Nobody wrote him off. Nobody killed the character off screen. The story just hasn't decided what to do with him yet. And for a show that just went through one of the messiest sibling betrayals in its run, that's a genuinely open question. Before we get into Russell's arc, you need to understand what kind of position Tracker is actually in right now. Because this isn't just some mid-tier procedural hoping for a renewal. For 2 straight years, Tracker was the single most watched show on all of network television. Not just on CBS, on every broadcast network combined. That changed this year. In March of 2026, CBS launched a new series called Marshals, a spinoff set inside the Yellowstone universe, starring Luke Grimes reprising his role as Case Dutton. And it did not ease into the schedule quietly. Its premiere pulled in over 9.5 million same-day viewers, the biggest launch for a scripted CBS show without a football lead-in since 2018. Within its first month, multi-platform numbers pushed past 20 million. By the time the season wrapped, the final tally was hard to ignore. Marshals finished the year with roughly 20.7 million viewers. Tracker, still a hit by any normal definition, finished around 16.4 million. For the first time since its debut, Tracker wasn't the biggest show in its own network's lineup, let alone all of broadcast TV. Now, here's the part most coverage skips. Tracker didn't collapse. It didn't lose a huge chunk of its audience. What actually happened is that CBS built a second hit strong enough to compete with it, and then leaned into pairing the two shows together on Sunday nights, using Tracker's established audience to help launch Marshals, and using Marshals' Yellowstone pull to bring in viewers who might stick around for Tracker afterward. It's less a defeat and more a changing of the guard within the same network's ecosystem. But make no mistake, losing that #1 spot changes the pressure on Tracker heading into Season 4. When you're the undisputed king, you can afford to move slowly. When you've got a challenger breathing down your neck, every creative decision gets scrutinized a little harder. Which brings us to the actual story engine of the show. The Shaw brothers. If you're newer to the show, here's the fast version. Tracker follows Colter Shaw, played by Justin Hartley, a survivalist who tracks down missing people for reward money while slowly uncovering the truth about his father Ashton, who died under mysterious circumstances years earlier. Russell is Colter's older brother, played by Jensen Ackles, and for the first 2 seasons, he was mostly a recurring presence who popped in to help, share information, and add some sibling tension to the mix. Season 3 changed that completely. Russell's role expanded in a real way this season. He wasn't just showing up to help solve a case anymore. He was actively pulling threads connected to their father's death, digging into government-funded testing on gifted children, and getting pulled deeper into a conspiracy that the show had been building since episode 1. And then, in the finale, titled The Best Ones, everything shifted. Russell got intelligence, reportedly from a Department of Defense contact, suggesting that their father did something to Colter when he was much younger. Something Colter apparently doesn't even remember. And instead of bringing that information straight to his brother, Russell made a call. He kept it hidden. He lied about where he was going and what he was actually doing, and he split off from Colter entirely to chase it down on his own. That's not a small narrative beat. That's a full betrayal of trust between the two people the entire show has been building around for 3 seasons. And it's the kind of cliffhanger that only works if the writers actually intend to pay it off, which means Russell isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. He's sitting on a piece of information the whole Season 4 mystery could hinge on. So here's the tension. Some entertainment outlets have pointed out that this ending quietly sidesteps the cleanest version of Season 4 setup. Instead of Colter and Russell teaming up to investigate what happened to their father together, which is the obvious fan-favorite direction, the show splits them apart right as the new mystery begins. Whether that's a deliberate slow burn or a scheduling workaround for Ackles' availability is honestly hard to say from the outside. Probably some of both. Here's a detail buried in most of the coverage that I think deserves way more attention. Tracker Season 4 is not filming where the first 3 seasons filmed. For its entire run, Tracker shot primarily in and around Vancouver, British Columbia, which is extremely common for CBS procedurals chasing better tax incentives and production costs. Season 4 is moving production to Los Angeles. That's a bigger deal than it sounds. A cross-border production move mid-series usually means new crew relationships, new location scouting, adjusted budgets, and yes, different logistics for actors who split their time across multiple projects. And that last part matters enormously for Jensen Ackles specifically, because his schedule is genuinely packed. He's currently attached to Vought Rising, the boys' prequel series on Prime Video, where he's not just acting, he's also producing, reprising his role as Soldier Boy in a show set decades before the events of the boys. That's a significant time commitment on its own, on top of whatever else he's got lined up. Filming Tracker in Vancouver, while also juggling a Los Angeles-based or otherwise geographically separate production, creates real friction. Actors lose entire shooting blocks to travel days, quarantine periods historically, insurance requirements, all of it. Moving Tracker's production to Los Angeles doesn't just cut costs. It potentially puts Ackles' 2 biggest projects in the same city, or at least the same time zone, for the first time. That alone could be the single biggest practical reason his Season 4 return feels more likely now than it did a year ago. It's a logistics story hiding inside a casting story, and I think that's honestly the most useful lens for making sense of Ackles' comment. He's not being cagey for dramatic effect. He's being genuinely accurate. The decision isn't really his to make Solo anymore. It depends on how the production calendar lines up, and that calendar just got a lot friendlier to his schedule. Let's zoom out and ask the actual creative question. Does Tracker need Russell back, story-wise, or is this just fan service? I'd argue it's both, and that's not a knock. The show spent an entire season building a mystery around what Ashton Shaw did to his sons, and specifically what he may have done to Colter that Colter himself doesn't remember. Russell is the only character who currently holds a piece of that answer. If the show wants to keep that thread alive into Season 4, which every scheduling report suggests it does, there's really only one person who can deliver that reveal in a way that lands emotionally. It has to be Russell, and it probably has to be face-to-face with Colter. Justin Hartley, who also produces the show, has been consistently public about wanting more Russell on screen, not less. That's not just an actor being polite about a co-star in an interview. Hartley has creative and financial stake in the show's direction, and he's repeatedly signaled that Ackles' limited episode count is a constraint they work around, not a preference. Given that CBS has confirmed Tracker Season 4 will run its usual Sunday 9 p.m. slot this fall, all the way through May, there's a wide runway here. Whatever's holding Russell's exact entrance point back right now, whether it's a specific episode count, a filming window, or simply the writers deciding where the reveal lands best in the season, there's plenty of time for it to happen. A guest arc doesn't need to open the season to matter. It just needs to land at the right moment. My honest read, based on everything lining up here, the production move to Los Angeles, Hartley's public support, the unresolved cliffhanger, and Ackles' own comment about waiting on a call, all point toward yes. He comes back. The real question isn't if, it's when in the season it happens, and how much of that season 3 secret finally gets revealed when he does that. So that's where things stand. Tracker's no longer the undisputed king of network TV, but it's still one of CBS's biggest assets, and the Shaw brothers' unfinished business might be exactly what pulls the crown back. If Russell Shaw's return matters to you, or if you think the show's better off letting that mystery breathe a little longer, drop your take in the comments. I actually read through most of them on these episodes. And if you want the next update, the second CBS confirms a premiere date or Ackles episode count leaks, subscribe because I'll have it here first. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.